Well, hello, and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Els. It is another beautiful day, and I want to welcome all of you who are already on. I am seeing Princess Vicky on. Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Els. I am seeing my good friend and brother, Bonafide, Pastor Winston Dawson out there in St. Lucia. Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Els. I pray you're doing well, my brother. Keep praying for me as I keep praying for you and your family. Give my regards to your lovely wife and daughter and to your church family, and I'm looking to really connect with you again sometime in the near future. We really gotta talk. But welcome to Conversations with Dr. Els. As usual, I want to encourage you guys to share this conversation. You can go to the bottom left or right of your screen and you can share this conversation. All right. And I am looking forward to having a good time with you. I want to say welcome to Conversations with Dr. Els. Lennox Keel, great having you locked on. Sanja Saunders, great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. Welcome, guys. Welcome. This evening, we want to talk a bit more about our relationships. Okay, I'm going to talk a bit more about relationships. And so I want you to just keep locked. I want you to tell someone that Conversations with Dr. Els is on. I want to talk on the topic emotional distance. Let's have a conversation about emotional distance. So when couples become roommates, okay, so that's what we want to talk about. Emotional distance when couples become roommates. And I have come to realize over the years that I have been around and been counseling, been talking to folks, been in church. I've seen in many cases where couples have moved from really having an attachment to become roommates. So we want to talk about that this evening. So find some couples in your church, find some couples in your neighborhood, find some couples wherever you are, and let them know this is a great conversation for them to be on. And so I'm looking forward. But before we get into it, I want to share just a few things with you. I want to share a few things with you. I want to share coming soon and very soon is my latest book. It's my latest book I want to share with you. It's called Drip Free Marriage. Okay, this book is called Drip Free Marriage, and it's a book that really talks about how marriage fall apart. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at Drip Free Marriage. And so I want you guys to get a copy. It's coming out soon. It should be out this week or next week, the latest. So I want you to get a copy of this book. I also want to remind you that I have some other books. I have a book for children. Okay, if you have a child, you know, a child who is 3 years to 8 years old, this book, Fruit Friends, God, Big Garden Adventure, is really good. I had a mother said to me that her son loved the book so much that he's been going over it, and until it got torn. And I presented a new one to her for her son. But this is a great book for you to have if you have any children or know any children that is around 3 to 8 years old. It's a book that talks about how children are God's fruit. You know, the Bible says in Psalms, that the children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. So the fruit of the womb is his reward. And so we use the whole aspect of fruit to show how children grow. Let me just pause and say hi to Avenel. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. Also Curtis Thomas. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. I also have this book for the teenagers. If you have teenagers around, this book, Locked In, Living with Faith in a Shaken World. This book is great for teens. It's a teen devotional. It's a practical teen devotional that they can use. And also, I do have this parenting book called Fruit of the Womb, Parenting with Purpose from Seed to Harvest. Parenting with Purpose from Seed to Harvest. And that is for parents so that you could understand the characteristics of children and how God build each child different, and how you can deal with that child or those children. So I want you to get those books, and as I said, coming soon, very soon, is the book on Drip Free Marriage. It's a book for all married couples. They need to get this book, and it's coming out soon. So let's get to our topic. And as usual on Conversations with Dr. Els, we need your feedback. We need you to talk with us. Okay, this is not a lecture, it is not me teaching also, it's a conversation we are having. Let's engage together, because these conversations are really great and helpful for persons who need to hear these things. So let me ask you something, and you can respond to me in the comments. Let me ask you, do you know, or have you ever seen couples who live in the same house? They sleep in the same bed, they share responsibilities, may have children or not, but they pay the bills, they go to work, they come home, they clean the house, they do these things together. But somehow they seem emotionally miles apart. This is a question that I have for you. Do you know couples like that? Yes, you see them. They even they go to church together. They may go to work using the same vehicle, the same car. They if they're on the train or the bus, they go to work together. They may even work at the same place, right? But you could tell that something isn't right. If you know someone like that, put a thumbs up in the chat, or, just put in the chat that you know someone like that. This is a question I'm asking you. Do you know anyone like that? Well, certainly, I have seen this a lot. I've seen this a number of times. And hey, Christian couples too, all right? Christian couples. And remember, if you put your comments in the chat, I could read your comments. Other people can see or hear your comment, because we are engaging this together, right? Wherever you are, whether in Barbados, in St. Lucia, in North America, in St. Vincent, wherever you are, do you know of any couples that they seem to be doing things together, but they're more than just couples? They are similarly their roommates. All right. And so let me ask you this. I'm asking you a couple questions tonight. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think that there are persons, they got married, they dated each other, they courted each other, they loved each other, they spent time before. There's some, actually, you couldn't see them apart. They would always be together. And then after a while, you realize these married couples, or these couples, I don't see them together doing the things that they used to do. Let me pause and say welcome to Conversations with Dr. Els. Norleen Richardson Hayward, great having you locked on. We're talking about emotional distance this evening. Emotional distance, when couples become roommates. And before I continue, let me just say, for those who are locked on from England, let me say happy Mother's Day to the mothers who are locked on from England. I know England is celebrating Mother's Day today, so happy Mother's Day to you. So I'm asking the question, have you ever seen, or do you know couples that live in the same house, maybe sleeping in the same bed, going to work together, share the same responsibilities, but somehow they look and seem emotionally distant or miles apart? It's like you have, we say, a train can pass through them. Or and so I'm asking, how do you think things like this happen? Persons been married for 10, 20 years, 15 years. Why do you think that happens? Or my question would be, an additional question to that would be, what do you think causes couple to drift like that? What do you think? Why do you think persons just drift away like that? If you have some insight, if you have some answers, I want you to put that in the chat. All right? because it is something that is really out there, and believe it or not, it is prevalent in Christian community. Christian couples, you would see them, they would go to church together, they have the children, they sit in the same seat, but when you notice them, you don't see any connection. Or when they're in church, in some cases, you see them where one is sitting on the right of the church and one is sitting on the left, or one is busy doing things, and you may see them, they would pass each other, and it would be like two ships passing on the high seas. They're way apart and they might be blowing the horn, just signaling each other. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Because these are real issues that we face in relationship. These are real issues that I see in relationship. All right? And so my question is, what does emotional distance actually look like in a relationship? What do you think emotional distance really, really look like? How could you tell that somebody or a couple is distant? How could you tell that they are apart? Right? Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els, my friend and my brother, Pastor Gibson Ishmael. Good night. And so, he's in from speaking to one of them, the spouse said after the marriage, they stopped dating and valuing each other. So here's a reason why, and thanks for your engagement. I hope more of you would engage in this, because this is so important, right? After years of marriage, they stopped dating. So the question is, should married people date? Should they continue to date? Should they spend time with each other apart from taking care of the home, taking care of the children and such like that? Should that happen? Right? What really does emotional distance actually look like in a relationship? How could you tell? Could you spot a couple and say, these people are distant? Could you tell that? Now, because let me help you while you're putting your comments in the chat. Let me help you here, because emotional distance often show up in subtle ways. As the comments say, it happens because people stop dating and stop valuing each other. But oftentimes I see couples stop sharing their feelings and their thoughts with each other, right? So we're seeking to answer the question, what does emotional distance actually look like? It looked like when couples stop sharing, when you could tell they stop sharing with each other, they stop sharing their feelings and their thoughts. Sometimes the couple might say, as couples, you may say to your wife or your husband, your significant other, I've been thinking about this. I just, let me give you an example. I just said to my wife this evening, I said, I asked her a question, and she had the same thought in her mind. She was like, I was just about to ask you that question. All right? But we see that happens. Even things like their conversations. Their conversation becomes mostly about tasks. Who is taking care of the children tomorrow? What are they having for breakfast? What are we doing for lunch? So they start to, you hear them, and all you hear from them would be things of conversation about tasks. Let me pause and say Hi, Roland Williams. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. And as a counselor, I have two pastors here on this conversation, and I'm sure they have touched base there with persons in their community, in their churches. How do you recognize a couple that they are emotionally distant? All right. So I'm saying one of the ways you do that is when you see conversation becomes mostly about tasks. Who's picking up the children? What bills need to be paid at this time? How are we working through this bill? Let's look at the budget. What needs to be done tomorrow? And when the conversation is just about things like that, you have to say, hey, this is a red flag in this relationship and this needs to be dealt with. All right? Because what is missing at times is the deeper conversations about hopes, about their frustrations, about their fears and their dreams, and when those things begin to disappear, when those things start moving away from the marriage, from the relationship, you can tell definitely this couple is drifting apart emotionally. And so even when we have couples, I know of couples, one person, one side doesn't know what is happening with the other person in the relationship, so they begin to drift apart. They stop inviting each other into their inner world, and the distance start growing. All right, so I believe you can agree with me here that these are some of the things, and I'm sure you could see it in some couples. When two persons are like that, notice they are drifting apart. There is an emotional distance happening there. And so here's another question that comes to mind really. Could two persons love each other and still feel disconnected? Can we have two persons who are in love with each other and still feel disconnected? Because I've come to recognize that love is not the only thing that keeps relationships together. So this is the million-dollar question. Can you still love the other person but yet feel disconnected? And the answer from my vantage point, from my opinion, from my studies, from my research, the answer is yes, it can happen. And you may have insights and you may be able to tell me more of what is happening, but love can still exist when the connection has weakened. Okay, you see, it is not that the man doesn't love the woman anymore, or it isn't that the woman doesn't love him anymore. There is still that love, You remember the days when you used to be going out together. You remember why actually you pursue that person. You remember why you went after that person. So love could still be there. Love could still exist. But the connection between the two has weakened. I'm going to pause and just say hi to Eugenia Cumberbatch. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. As usual, I appreciate you guys, connecting with me on a weekly basis. Well, let me tell you, there are many couples. There are couples that I know who are deeply in love with each other. They care for each other. They care deeply. So it is not that they hate each other. It is not that they dislike each other, but many couples care deeply for each other, but they feel emotionally distant because of habits that they've developed, and those habits that nurtured the relationship over the years began to slowly fade away. All right. Love is often that foundation, but the connection, understand this, the connection requires intentional attention. So you can say, for example, you would hear in relationships sometimes the man would say, I am paying the bills, so you should know that I love you. All right. Or the woman would say, but look, I'm cooking your food, I am doing these things, so you should know I love you. Right? Love in a relationship is the foundation, but they still need that connection, and that connection requires intentional attention. You got to do things intentionally. As was said in the chat earlier, you have to continue to date. You can't. Let me ask you this question. You don't need to answer it in the chat if you don't feel like doing so. But if you're a married couple, however long you've been married, do you still have date nights? Do you still take your spouse out? Or even if you can't take your spouse out, do you do things together? Maybe watch a movie, pop some corn, things like that. Do you still have that? Because these are some of the things that are needed to keep that emotional connection, right? Because while you love each other, and I mean, like I said before, I know of couple who they love their spouse, so you can't say that person doesn't love that person, but you notice that there is something distant between them. Hi, Arlene Byrne. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. And so, without really having that attention, without that intentional doing things intentionally, distance can develop even in relationship where love is still present. All right. So you can't just say, well, I love this person. I do love my husband. I do love my wife. I do love my significant other. You can say that. Love is still there. But the connection is needed. And you have to be intentional with that. Oftentimes the first thing that changes is connection. We are talking about emotional distance and how couple becomes roommate. And so oftentimes what happens is the conversation change. Let me say, Brother Adam Cameron Tanis, great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. So what often change, or what changes first when couples start drifting apart? What I notice is that the conversation, and we talked a little bit about that early, but the conversation changes. Couples talk less, right? They would not, you would not see them talking as much as they used to. And even when they're talking, all right, they're talking less about meaningful things, and they're talking more about logistics. So they're talking more about what are we doing with the house? What color are we painting it with? As I said earlier, how are we picking up the children tomorrow? Maybe one child is coming home from school early, and so we need to figure this out. Do we need a nanny? Do we need to ask the neighbor to pick him or her up? And they start talking about these things. And yes, let me say, yes, these things are important, right? but they're more logistics. And when you see couples start really talking about logistics, when it's just talking about these things, how we pay the bills, watch out. There are emotional distance. You know, when you see things like the laughter, they don't laugh together anymore. They don't behave foolish with each other anymore. They don't laugh at each other's corny jokes or things like that. You could recognize that these couples are drifting apart. I want to pause here and say hi to Anga Maki. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. Maria Julian, great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. All right. We are talking about emotional distance when couples become roommates. Couples could be living together and instead of really having that connection, they could live just as roommates. And we're seeing some of the things that you see when this is happening is that laughter decreases. They don't laugh at each other's joke. The curiosity about each other's thoughts and their feelings begin to fade. All right. You know, oftentimes we would say, a penny for your thoughts. I don't know if you know that phrase. But, you know, you're asking your spouse, what are you thinking? You're interested to know what they're thinking. What are their thoughts? When you see in relationship that is decreasing, hey, watch out. There is emotional distance. All right. So when one person isn't curious anymore about what the other person is thinking and what they are feeling and what's happening, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What do you think about this? You know, I find myself would ask my wife from often if I'm doing something. I always want her opinion. All right. When I dress, you know, when I'm putting clothes together, I'm like, what do you think? Do you think this goes with that or such like that? So even the so-called simple things, you talk with each other, you connect with each other. When those things are apart, there is emotional distance. Guys become roommates rather than couples. All right, and so when you see, as I said earlier, meaningful conversation begins to disappear, then what happened? Emotional distance usually follows. All right. So these are some of the things you gotta look for. If you're not aware of them, these are some of the things that you look for. And sometimes couples stop sharing their inner world. They still talk. But as I said before, mostly about bills, mostly about responsibilities, mostly about schedules and such like that. They talk about that. But there is really no deep connecting with each other. All right? And so what happened is that even in their conversations become very practical. They become very logistics. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to pay the bills. This is what bill we're going to leave until next week and such like that. Or you don't see them really enjoying each other. They don't connect with each other. They don't touch each other. They spend less time intentionally with each other. And so, like I said, things like having a date night, going out, or even just going for a drive, leaving the children home if they're old enough, and just go for a drive. Just go back to some place that has some sort of connection in your mind. Maybe it was a place where you first kissed, or the place where you know you saw this particular person and you laughed together and you had fun together. Just going back to those places can help restore the connection. Okay? And so I'm saying that couples really don't drift apart because they stop loving each other, but because at times I recognize that life becomes overwhelming. And so as a counselor, as a relationship coach, as a family life educator, I really don't belittle couples who are drifting apart, because I've come to recognize, as the young people used to say, I believe they've gone past that, life is just lifing. And sometimes, the couples become overwhelmed. The couples become overwhelmed because of things happening. All right. Let me just read this comment. Dating is always encouraged, but not everyone is interested. Yes, the children are the ones that they blame. Married people need to keep joking about things. Some of us are too politically correct. And I agree with that. You see, for some reason, sometimes one party doesn't seem to be interested because, and let me give you some examples, right? Sometimes the man think date, that means I have to spend money. And so he's not creative enough to think that, you can go on dates without spending money. Just hanging out together, even in your bedroom, you can have a date right in your bedroom, where I know a lot of people have televisions in their room where you watch a movie, you pop some corn, you just behave with funny with yourself, because that is one of the things that go out the door. Laughter, being funny, have some foolish joke, clown around, sing, play some games together. Things like that are things that can be done to build that emotional connectivity. All right. And I so agree with the thing that children, while it is true in some cases that children has caused, I shouldn't say has caused, but when children come into the picture, it really take a toll on the relationship, and so people become overwhelmed. But this is why I am saying you have to be intentional. You have to make that a priority. You have to decide, this is what we are going to do, and find an avenue, find a way to walk around, even if the children are around. Have a sign on your bedroom door and say to the children, do not disturb. Make sure you provide them with, depends on the age, you provide them with whatever food they would need. They themselves could probably do their homework, maybe watch TV until you finish, give them a certain time. Maybe you come out a little later and you check on them. These are practical things that you can do. All right, but you can still have a date night, even if you are in the same house and you don't have the money. And let me say something. Bills would always be around, and so sometimes you have to bite the bullet, as we may say, and spend a few dollars here. Buy a drink, buy a pack of biscuit, buy something, and have fun with it. All right. Let me pause and say hi to Omenta Branca, Minister Omenta Branca. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. L. And so I'm saying that oftentimes couples don't drift apart because they stop loving each other, but because life become overwhelming, and so work pressure. One person coming from work, and she's tired, or he comes from work, and all of these things that has to be done for work, and they become overwhelmed with the pressures of work, or as we said, the children and their responsibilities, or their stress and fatigue. Believe it or not, even digital distractions. Now we have this more than ever before. That causes couples to drift apart emotionally, because they keep scrolling. So they keep scrolling on their cell phone, and they through Facebook and WhatsApp, and they're on TikTok and IG and Snapchat and such like that, and they move from one to the other and one to the other, and there is always something with these social media that is pulling you in. All right. And so when we look at that, these things happen. Persons become emotionally distant when these things happen. I want to pause and just let me read this comment. Dating is always encouraged. Okay, right. I think I read that comment already. But let me say hi to Rainer Brown, great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. So we are saying a lot of times for couples, while some may have good intentions, some may want to go on a date, some may want to do things, but sometimes the pressures of life, they become so overwhelmed. The work pressure, the children and the responsibilities, the stress and the fatigue. People become tired, and there is the digital distraction. And I'm not using these as an excuse. I am saying that these are real things that happen in life. And these are the reason why we need to be intentional about connecting with each other. All right? You can't be a couple and be roommates. You can't be married and be roommates. It will not happen just like that. You can say, well, we've had children together. Our children, look how we've grown over the years. We're married. We have these responsibilities together, so we are fine. You could be in the same house, sharing the same bed, and be like roommates instead of couple. And hear me. Right? Busyness is one of the biggest enemies of intimacy today. There are couples, as a matter of fact, one statistic said that for Christian couples engaged in sexual activity, in intimate sexual activities for 8 minutes a week. Now it's an average. That's what the statistics say. That the average Christian couples have sex for 8 minutes a week. I know of couples, married couples, who have gone months without sexual activities, without being intimate with each other. And so they are just roommates. There isn't that emotional connection with each other. But do they love each other? Yes, they do love each other. Let me pause and say hi to Sil John, great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. All right. Two persons can be so extremely busy trying to build a life together while they are slowly losing their connection. And these are things that you have to avoid. These are things that you have to notice and know that these things happen. All right? So what is the difference between simply living together and actually feeling connected? How do you know that you are connecting with each other? I'm saying that connection goes deeper than just having normal conversation. It goes deeper than just sharing physical space and just more. It's more than managing life together. It involves emotional openness. It involves meaningful conversations. You're talking, you talk about how are we doing as a couple. What are the things that interest you? What are the things that you like to do? What can we do to beef up our relationship? How can we make it more spicy? What do you like and what don't you like? These are things that you do that brings that emotional connection together. Be open about feelings. Show genuine interest in each other's inner world. All right, not just what is happening around you. You see, connected couples are not only present in the same home, they remain present in each other's lives emotionally and relationally. They connect with each other, they sit with each other, they hug each other, they touch each other. They're there in the different moments of life, you know, when sickness, when joys, when fears, when pains, when frustrations. They are there. These are the things that connect. These are the things that connect couples together. All right, and so what we are saying in this conversation is that we have to guard our relationships from moving from loving each other and being emotionally connected to being emotionally distant. We have to guard our relationship from us becoming share roommates, because that's what roommates what they do. They share the bills, they share the rent if they're renting and such like that, food, but there is no emotional connection. And so emotional connection are needed, okay? Emotional connection are needed in a relationship, in a marriage. Emotional connections are needed. And so, guys, you got to understand this. So, we have to come to the place. We're looking at some of the things that causes couples to drift apart. All right? And we're saying that it is not that they don't love each other, but life happens, and often if you're not being intentional, they would drift apart. Let me say hi to Venus Williams. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. So I have given you some reasons why couples drift apart and become like roommates, right? I've shown you how you can recognize couples who are drifting apart. I want to pick this up next week, and I know that we are working in terms of timing. Conversations with Dr. Els, I'll remind you, is 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I know we just shift back to the same time, so while it was 7:30 for some of you and 6:30 where I am now, it is 6:30. So I want you to connect each Sunday at 6:30, and we would have great conversations together. So next week, and I'm looking forward for this. You got to share this with someone. You got to let someone know Conversations with Dr. Els will be on next week. Next week, we want to look at some solutions in a greater way. All right? If couples realize they are drifting apart, or if they realize they've drifted apart, how can they connect each other? Is it possible to reconnect? How can they reconnect with each other? I want to dig into that some more and give you some practical insight. And I want you, I know, like I always say, this is a conversation, so your input is greatly appreciated, and so you can connect with me in the chat as we discuss these things. All right. So we're gonna deal with that next week, but in the meantime, I want to remind you that for those of you who are couples, those of you who are married, you're engaged, I have a 30-day drip-free marriage challenge that I want to put to you. I have over 50 persons who signed up for this challenge, and they're doing this challenge, and I've gotten feedback from them how this is really helping. It's an email challenge, so it's free. You don't have to pay anything for it. You would each day, if you sign up for this challenge, you get an email, and if you sign up and you haven't gotten the email, please check your spam or your junk folder, we usually call it, right? And you would find it there. I guarantee you would find it there. So what happened when you sign up for this 30-day drip-free marriage challenge? What happens is that you will receive an email each day, and that email will give you some tips, it will give you some ideas, it would give you some conversational starters that you can have with your spouse. It will give you some things that you can do, because this challenge can be done either together as a couple, or you can do it by yourself. You know, it takes really one person, let me put it this way, one person can help to change a marriage for the better. Okay, just like one person could change a marriage for the worse, one person can help to change a marriage for the better. So I want you to go to www.dripfreemarriage.com. That's www.dripfreemarriage.com, and you can get there and you can sign up for the Drip Free Marriage Challenge. It is, like I said, it is free, and you see the word free comes up there. It is Drip Free Marriage, and the idea is that like the Bible says, like a continual dripping on a rainy day and a contentious woman is alike. The idea is that marriage don't tear apart one time, but the little things, the little leaks that we ignore or that we fail to deal with are the things that make marriages break and destroy. And so if we're able to deal with these little leaks, right, just like if you have a pipe in your home and it's leaking, two things can happen. You're going to have a very, very huge water bill, or it is going to damage the house if you don't deal with it. And so this is the idea. Go to www.dripfreemarriage.com, sign up for this free email drip free challenge, and I guarantee you it's going to help your relationship. So guys, like I said, next week we want to look at how we can help couples who realize that they've drifted apart, how we can help them to reconnect and to have emotionally healthy relationships. All right. So thanks guys for being a part of Conversations with Dr. Els today. It was really great having you locked on. And remember, whatever you do this week, add value to somebody's life. Whatever you do, add value to somebody's life. This has been Conversations with Dr. Els. I love you guys and looking forward to see you next week, God's will.